Hey, what's going on, guys? DK. Back at you with another video here to play in the Sunday Night Football Show on site. We have Tampa Bay versus New England, Tom Brady's return. This one's going to be good. Both teams, it's going to be a tricky one because both teams like using a lot of running backs. Both teams will use 2 tight ends. So, going to be a fun one. Again, I'll do my best to break it down. But if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. My name is DK. I make daily videos as well as live stream for NBA and NFL slates on Draftkings covering NBA preseason. We have a first preseason Showdown slate coming up in a couple hours. Super excited for that one. If you guys are unable to watch these YouTube videos, I also upload on Apple Podcasts. I'll have a link down below. It's called the DKDFS Show. If you're interested in signing up for premium content, now is a perfect time, start of the month. Again, I offer NBA package. We'll be covering the preseason. We've had a great, summer league. We had a great NBA preseason last year, so super excited for this. The NFL regular season, we're covering every single show and slate as well as the main slate. And I also offer an esports package that includes Call of Duty and CSGO. Again, more information in the description below. And finally, I want to thank today's sponsor, PrizePicks. So if you guys are not familiar with PrizePicks, there are a few different ways you can play for NFL. The first way is to take over/under on just straight up fantasy points. So right now, there's a decent amount. I think 10 players posted for the Sunday Night Football Show on slate, like Tom Brady's projected for 23.5 fantasy points. Do you like the under? Do you like the over? You can also go over to single stat if you prefer that way. Here, I probably have to refresh this. You can go to single stat and go to like passing yards, rushing yards, receiving yards if you prefer that. Again, that's the second half contest. Passing touchdowns. So there's so many different ways you can play. You can also mix and match sports. They have every single sport you can think of. So if you guys want to try it out, you can sign up using the code DKDFS. DKDFS, all one word, also linked down below. You get 100% match up to $100. So you deposit using my code $100, you'll get a free $100 to play with. All right, guys, so let's jump into this video. Tampa Bay and New England. Oh, I guess really quick, if you guys could, if you enjoy the content, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All right, so let's quickly look back lineup here from Thursday's show and slate. So Thursday, because it's kind of forgettable, I was in like the 60th percentile, nothing crazy. Auden Tate using the captain, kind of that team jam and min approach, using both quarterbacks in Burrow and Lawrence. Mixon was a little bit of a letdown, and Marvin Jones Jr. and Chenault. MJJ was definitely disappointing there. He was about 40% owned. In high stakes, this was the winning lineup in the luxury box. Mixing in the captain with Burrow, Robinson, Boyd, CJ Uzoma, and Auden Tate. Auden Tate, you can see, again, as I always say, ownership condenses in the good plays. He was 50% in the luxury box, only about 30% lower stake stuff. I think like 25% in the middle maker or something like that. So, but yeah, that's it for the look back, guys. So let's talk about this slate quickly. Let's go over the Vegas total, and then we can get into some snap counts. So it's a 49 over under. The Bucs are 6.5 point favorites. Let's start off with snap counts here for Tampa Bay. So running back last week, Giovanni Bernard played 45% of the snaps. He is injured. Also, they were playing from behind that game, so that's why it made sense. We had Leonard Fournette played 36%, and Ronald Jones played 16%. Keyshawn Vaughn didn't play any snaps, but he is going to be active in this one, so they do still have 3 running backs. At wide receiver, Godwin Evans played a majority of the game. Also, you had Johnson and Miller kind of filling in for the slot role, but Antonio Brown is back here, so expect Antonio Brown to play a majority of those snaps. At tight end, Gronk played 62% of the snaps. He is also injured. So we have Cam Brate, O.J. Howard they're going to fill in. Cam Brate probably plays the most since he played 45% last week as opposed to 19% from O.J. Howard. But I expect both tight ends to get some work here. And then, yeah, we'll go over New England here in a sec. All right, so let's start off with the Tampa Bay side. Tom Brady, 12.8K. One of the safer options. Obviously, he's got the revenge game narrative going back to New England. Don't think we had to spend a ton of time here. I think the way he fails is if Tampa Bay gets off to maybe a massive lead and they just don't have to throw the ball a ton. But yeah, 50, 36, 55 pass attempts. They're still throwing the ball a decent amount even when they're playing from ahead. This game against Atlanta, big lead, still threw 36 times. So Brady, very, very safe option. Godwin versus Mike Evans. So Godwin at 11.2, Evans at 10.4. I'll say Godwin might be the slightly safer target here. And then Mike Evans, a little bit more of that boomer bust, but he's a guy who can look to in the red zone. He's been still getting a safe amount of targets too. Yeah, week one was a little bit of a letdown, but yeah, like both Tampa Bay wide receivers, both are going to be relatively popular. Again, both safe options. Gronk out, so we'll get to the backup tight ends here in a sec. So Fournette's at 7.6. God, I just don't trust Bruce Arians at all, but you know, what's going to happen here? Is there just going to be Fournette and Ronald Jones? Are we going to go back to last year where it was like Jones early down work, Leonard Fournette third down work? Or is Keyshawn Vaughn getting it mixed in, right? So that's the question mark here. Fournette's very pricey, 7.6. So that's my issue with him. If he was way cheaper, I would like him, but like 7-6 is going to be a little bit hard for me to prioritize him with one, potentially two backs being mixed in with him. Antonio Brown at 7K, so he's going to play majority out of the slot. I think we get 60 to 70% of the snaps for Antonio. He had the big week one, kind of let down week in week two, but I think he is a solid option kind of in the mid-range. The Bucs D at 6-6 just feels too pricey for me. On the road, sure, New England's offense is not great, but like I have a hard time paying that much for a defense. At tight end, so we do have some value here, right? Cam Brate has been playing a decent amount. He played, 40+% snaps last week. Would expect him to get the biggest boost with Gronk out. So I think Brate is actually a pretty safe play there at that price. Kicker situation here for Tampa Bay. Suckup is a relatively safe option too. Probably prefer him to the New England kicker. Again, Giovanni Bernard is out, so he will not play. So that's what the big question mark there is, what Tampa Bay does with the backs. Ronald Jones is way cheaper at only 2K as opposed to 7-6 for Leonard Fournette. Now, he hasn't really been great, not been getting a ton of work, but he's super, super cheap, so I do think he's in play. There's a chance that's just going to be Jones and Fournette and maybe no Keyshawn Vaughn. O.J. Howard, I think his snaps go up. He hasn't played a ton recently, but I would expect him to play the backup tight end role, so he's a viable punt option at 1K too. And then Keyshawn Vaughn as a dart throw in large field tournaments, I don't hate it. I think there's a chance he gets mixed in a little bit. And Scotty Miller is on the IR. If you want to go to Tyler Johnson in a deep tournament, I don't think it's the worst idea. It's just he's probably only going to play around 20% snaps with Antonio Brown back. Okay, so let's move on to New England. New England's, both teams are tricky because running backs is kind of a headache for both teams. Brandon Bolden surprisingly played the most, 46% of snaps last week. Damian Harris, 31. J.J. Taylor, 14%. James White only put 8%. Stevenson was inactive, but he's going to be active this week. So going to be 4 running backs probably mixed in for New England. Tough to feel great about any of the guys. At wide receiver, a little bit more clear cut. Jacoby Myers, 96% of the snaps. Aguilar, 81%. Bourne, 76%. Gunnar played 22%. We do have N'Keal Harry coming back. Now, what will that do? Does that take away from Kendrick Bourne? We'll see. But yeah, that's how the wide receiver snaps went last week. And then at tight end, 2 guys will use Hunter Henry and Juju Smith. Hunter Henry played 72% as opposed to Juju Smith only playing 42% of snaps. So starting off the quarterback, Mac Jones, I think he's actually a pretty safe play. He's not the best quarterback, but way cheaper than Tom Brady and most likely to be playing from behind. I think he's a pretty safe option. Whenever you have a below-average quarterback in a Showdown slate, they always seem to be a little bit too cheap. So 9.4K I think is a pretty solid price there for Mac Jones. Jacoby Myers is probably the safest option here for New England. I think he's their clear number 1 wide receiver. 9, 6, and 14 targets. Again, it's probably going to be negative game script, so I do like him at that price point. You also have Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, number 2, number 3 receivers at the moment. Aguilar, 5, 6, so he's had a decent amount of targets too, 8 and 7 in 2 of the first 3 weeks. And then you had Kendrick Bourne at a big week last week, 6 catches and 8 targets. Again, though, he's got the big play upside. You also, though, have N'Keal Harry possibly working in, so we'll see what that does for those snaps. But all 3 New England receivers, I think, are viable here in Myers, Aguilar, and Bourne. Myers probably being the safest, even though he is the most expensive. At running back, this is just where the headache comes in, right? Damon Harris can be the early down back, but this is a game they're probably playing from behind. He's also 7.4K, and there could be 4 running backs to touch the ball. So hard to prioritize him. Weird things can happen, though. New England could get off front really late. It could be a heavy dose of Damon Harris. I'm not saying he's completely out of play, but it's going to be hard for me to prioritize him at that price point. You have Henry at 4.6, Juju Smith at 4K. Both are going to run a decent amount of routes. And Henry played a little bit more last week as opposed to Juju Smith. So maybe a small lean to Henry, but both guys going to be involved. We know New England likes getting those tight ends involved. At kicker, keep an eye on Nick Folk if he's good to go. Obviously viable. If not, then New England won't have a kicker on the Draftkings slate. Probably going to stay away from the Patriots defense. And then you have the other running backs here for New England. So you have J.J. Taylor, Stevenson, and Bolden all going to get mixed in. Right now they have Bolden as the number 2 running back on the depth chart. We'll see if he ends up getting as much touch as he did last week. He was kind of their pass-catching running back, I guess, 3 catches and 4 targets. So, he's definitely in play for value. You also have Stevenson and Taylor that could get mixed in. So it's going to be tough to nail down which New England running back is going to be. And then, again, I talked about James White being in the IR. N'Keal Harry, I do think is viable, is activated off the IR. Now, how much work he gets is a little bit more up in the air, right? He is, I believe, number 4 in the depth chart here for wide receiver. He's number 4, so he could take a little bit away from Kendrick Bourne. So large field tournament play if you want to go to N'Keal Harry, I don't think it's the worst idea. But, yeah, that's kind of it for the team-by-team breakdown. You guys can tell both teams are going to use a lot of guys. Like both teams, might use 3 to 4 running backs. Both teams can use 2 tight ends. So I guess it's going to be a fun show on slate, but there's so many options. And again, we have a million maker up top, and obviously Tom Brady's returning to New England. It should be a fun game. Now, I'm not going to be live later, so just FYI, there will be no live stream for the Sunday Night Football show on site. So I wanted to get this video up as quick as I could for you guys. So that's going to do it, guys. Good luck, and I will see you all in the next one.